Absolutely. I mean, I thought I was going to be singled out because of my accent, especially because I knew that, especially from like, Newcastle's got quite a distinctive accent, and Newcastle's got really sort of low admission statistics for Oxbridge. So I thought I was going to sort of stick out like a sore thumb. And it's just not been the case. I mean, I've had people pick up on my accent, but it's never been in a negative way. People are always just interested to sort of learn where you come from. And it's nice because then that it sort of actually has opened more opportunities than I've had it sort of close. It's always just a nice conversation to have because they go, is that a Geordie accent, or what's that accent? Where are you from? And you get talking about where you're from, and you ask where they're from, and you get to learn about places that you might not have heard of. So yeah, it's in a weird way, it's a great way to open a door into a conversation. And I think some of those conversations have led to me, some of my best mates at the university now started out in Freshers Week just being like, that accent, where's it quite from? I'm trying to place it. So I'd actually say it's quite a positive thing.
Hello everyone, welcome to Cambridge from the Inside. We're here with a new guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Scout. I'm a first year at Trinity Hall and I do English.
Nice. And we're here to talk about preconceptions and myths about and concerns about applying to Cambridge, what Cambridge is like studying here, and financial support as well that students can get while studying at Cambridge. So to start off from the very beginning, how did you come about applying to Cambridge?
So I was really fortunate. I had a very good sixth form, especially my head of year had a real drive to push people to apply to sort of Oxbridge.
Yeah.
So I would put it up mostly to that. My sixth form really pushed me in the right direction because it's not something I'd ever thought about really sort of prior to when you apply to university.
Yeah.
It's something my sixth form kind of came to me with.
So before sixth form, were you thinking of applying to going to university in general?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to go to university, but I was more thinking like Manchester is sort of where I had my heart set on. Yeah. And then when I got asked if I wanted to apply to Cambridge and if I wanted to sort of attend these application process classes, I was a bit spooked because I think there's a lot of baggage sort of associated with the idea of applying to Cambridge.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm obviously really, really glad I chose to, but I know there was people in my school who really could have came here and would have thrived here who didn't apply because of that. So even though my school was really good at pushing people, which I'm very fortunate for, even in my school there was people who still didn't sort of apply because of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And am I right in thinking that Manchester would have been closer to home than Cambridge?
Yeah, Manchester would have been quite a lot closer at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whereabouts are you from in the UK?
I'm from Newcastle. I'm from about 15 minutes outside of Newcastle city centre.
Yeah.
So pretty in there.
Nice. That's really cool. Yeah. So if you don't mind me asking, how did your GCSEs go? Because a lot of people, when they do their GCSEs, they can't, depending on the results, that will kind of then lead them to think whether they should apply for Cambridge or not. So I was wondering, how did you do that?
So my GCSEs were they were good and I'm proud of them, but they weren't what you'd think a Cambridge student's GCSEs would be. So I didn't get any 9s at GCSE. Nice. I got mostly 7s and 3 8s, and I got a 5 by 1 mark in French.
Yeah.
So I worked very hard for my GCSEs. I'm very proud of them, but it's not. I think there's the sort of connotations that GCSEs you have to be perfect and get all 9s across the board. And that's really, really not the case.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. It's a really good, it's a really good message to get out there, so that people know. So was your sixth form separate to your school?
So my sixth form was part of my high school.
Yeah,
It was like a sixth form college attached to the school.
Nice. That's really so. And your peers, your friends who didn't apply to Cambridge, what were the reasons, do you think, that stopped them, or reasons that they chose not to apply to Cambridge?
I think Cambridge has a reputation.
Yeah.
I know quite a lot of my friends, it's because of the reputation as Cambridge is quite elitist. And also a lot of fears to do with the workload, and just the workload being absolutely unmanageable, and that there would be no support if you struggled to keep up with the workload. That's sort of just the complaints I've very commonly heard.
Yeah, and yeah, and you hear that concern a lot from people. Would you say that Cambridge is elitist?
No, I would say for the most part, no. I won't lie. There are those very, very, very minute fractions that exist in the university, but you're going to get that anywhere. That just comes with people from all over the country and all over different backgrounds mixing. Cambridge, as an institution, absolutely not. Maybe if you ask me 150 years ago, yeah, but it's done a lot, and especially to big up my own college, Trinity Hall, is really, really welcoming. And I've had absolutely no bother since I got here. Everyone's just been really lovely. And as well, what I sort of realised is everyone's coming with the same sort of fear of it being elitist and not fitting in. So really, everyone's sort of in the same boat. And in that way, that completely just eliminates the problem. It's like it's an unfortunate misconception, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And am I right in thinking when you're saying besides like the very minute, the minutia, is that a very, very, very small group of people coming from like an extremely privileged background, but that's like a small subset, or?
Yeah, I would say so. It's the absolute like rarity, and you would get that. I know talking to friends at other universities, that's not something unique to Cambridge. Yeah. Unfortunately, you get that at every university across the country.
Yeah. And I think it's a good message to get across that institutionally, the university is not elitist in any way at all. When it comes to applications, it is about your potential regardless of your background. And another thing I wanted to say is I was talking to a first year student who had come from an independent school, and she was really nervous about fitting in and finding her people and kind of being seen, and was worried about being perceived as posh. And I think I'd said, I remember thinking like, well, I completely understood where she was coming from, and all of her feelings are very valid. But part of me was also thinking that, well, if she's very concerned about fitting in, and how is it's clearly a shared feeling, no matter from probably every single background, as you've said. And so if you're an applicant and you're thinking, oh, will I fit in? You should be rest assured that is a normal feeling. So can you talk to us about how the application process was like from when you started thinking about applying to Cambridge and to, I guess, like doing interviews?
So I started thinking about applying quite seriously after my because I'd been approached by my sixth form, and I had all of those preconceptions I talked about. So I pushed back a bit, and I was like, I'm not quite sure I want to apply. And then I got convinced by my head of sixth form to just come along and listen to this ex-pupil talk who'd beat my school and went to Jesus College.
Yeah.
And then I sort of seriously started to think about applying after that, because I sort of realised like, oh, actually, people from my background can do really well at Cambridge. And then, so I submitted my UCAS application. I was quite lucky in the fact that my college had a just really good personal statement scheme, where they were really on our backs about the personal statements, but in a really good way. So I had a lot of support about, sort of getting through my personal statement. But what I would say as well is that I think there's a lot of pressure put on the personal statement. And the good thing about Cambridge is it's a very holistic process, the applications. They look at everything. There's, I'm not going to lie, it's a long application process, but that's good. There's a reason it is. At other universities, I feel like it's a lot more, the personal statement carries a lot more weight. Whereas Cambridge, I would say, don't put effort into it, but don't stress over your personal statement. So I handed that in, and then I got invited. So I applied to Trinity Hall, and I was very happy here. I got, offered an interview at the college, and I had 2 rounds of interviews. I'm trying to remember. It was quite a little while ago.
Yeah, of course.
I had 2 rounds of interviews.
Were they in person or online?
No, they were online. Yeah. I'm not sure if they're still online this year.
So for the year just gone, they were in person for UK students and online for international students. I believe that's what we're doing that upcoming year. But that's for Trinity Hall. Every college Saturday differs in that.
Yeah. Well, mine were all online, which was... The online, I was really worried about doing interviews online, but if anyone's listening to this who happens to have an online interview at a different college, don't worry about it. Yeah. The online interviews, because I think there was fears of like, what happens if my Wi-Fi cuts out? What happens if my microphone, technical issues? I did have technical issues during my interview. My Wi-Fi completely went down, which you would think would be like absolute nightmare scenario, but the interviewers were so lovely about it and so accommodating. So take it from someone who's been there. If it all goes a bit wrong on the online interview with technical stuff, don't worry. The university is very understanding about that.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And now that you're in your first year, right? End of second term. How have you found uni so far?
So fun. And I think fun is a word that people are always a bit hesitant to use with Cambridge, because the idea is that you should be working hard all of the time. And I won't lie, it is hard work, but I think the social aspect of the university is looked over quite a lot, and I think the college system is really good at facilitating that. I've made some amazing friends and met amazing people and got to do amazing things in the societies as well are just brilliant. So it's, I would say for the most part, really just fun. Had a great time. The work as well, although it's a lot, it's very interesting. And at least for English, it's very open-ended. You can sort of do, it's at least at Trinity Hall, it's a structured course in the case that you have like period papers. But on a week-by-week basis, you've got a lot of freedom in what you choose, which I really appreciate, because I like sort of being able to find my own way through stuff.
Yeah, nice. Were there a lot of guys from the northeast applying to Oxbridge for English?
No. I'm the only person in my year, I believe, who got into Cambridge, and there's only one other person from the northeast in Trinity Hall in my year. So there's not a lot of work. I'm the current class act officer for Trinity Hall, and I'm working with Access, and we're trying to get the ball rolling because the North is underrepresented at all the universities. But I would say don't let that put you off, because that was something I was really scared about when I was coming here, that there was no one sort of where I lived, so I wasn't going to fit in. People really don't care about that. Like, that's why I built it up in my head so much, and I got here and people were like, they didn't care
Yeah.
and they didn't care about my accent. So I've slightly lost my accent a little bit since coming here, but that just comes with mixing from people from all over the country. But I used to have a pretty strong Geordie accent, and people I've never been really made fun of because of my accent since getting here, which is something I was so worried about happening, and it just doesn't, which I was obviously really glad.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a pretty limited amount of people doing English from the northeast.
No, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's I think that's really cool as well. And it's also kind of don't want to go on a tangent, but it's very akin to a lot of like previous artists and writers coming from, whether it's from Ireland or the North, or like, I don't know, yeah. It's quite exciting to have something different to say compared to just more white men from the South. So far with, I know it's something that we've talked about already at the moment, but so far of your experiences at Cambridge, how would you say your experiences have lined up to either preconceptions that you had or preconceptions that your friends had?
I would say it's been completely not what I expected it to be. So when I was on results day, I really had a moment where I considered not coming to Cambridge and going with my insurance choice because I was so scared about these preconceptions. And I'm very thankful to my past self that I just took the plunge and went with Cambridge. And the preconceptions were so wrong. It's the workload it's obviously hard, but it's not as overwhelmingly intense as preconceptions make it out to be. The university has a real interest in not burning its students out because, of course, it does. So the workload is manageable, and there is so much support for if you're struggling with the workload. I've came to my DOS and sort of talked about stuff like that, and I have friends who've, sort of went to their DOS and just said, look, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z, and they are so accommodating and so lovely. And yeah, it's on the social side, it's so, everyone's in the same boat, everyone is so lovely, and like, you're going to meet people from other colleges as well, and that's a great experience because, every college is quite different. But also, like, it's nice to go around different colleges and meet sort of different groups of people. But everyone's just really nice.
Yeah.
I think that's a good factor of the interview process as well. Is that, like, it's so far everyone I've met's been really lovely. And as I said sort of previously, institutionally, there's so much has changed, I think, since these sort of preconceptions have arisen. And it's so like open and accommodating.
Yeah, because I guess some people would believe Cambridge to be like a finishing school for boys who've come from boarding schools, and that's just not the case. It might have been the case a long time ago, but it's not the case right now.
Yeah, it's a university really for anyone, which I've learned through experience, because again, I had all of those preconceptions I had, and I've sort of been fortunate in being wrong.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. One thing that was really interesting thing that you said was that you said that your accent has changed slightly since you've been studying here. And I imagine some people watching this might be worried that if they were to go to Cambridge, whether it's their accent or their sense of identity or sense of who they are, where they've come from, they might feel like there's a risk of changing too much.
Yeah.
And yeah, what would you say?
I would say that that's really not something to worry about. I'm a Geordie at heart through, really. And as if any of my friends are listening still know, I talk about Newcastle any chance I get, because I really do believe it's the best city. But and as well, there's at least from the north, there's Northern Society, and that is if you're worried about sort of losing touch with that sort of part of your identity, that's a great way to sort of meet people sort of from your area and about. But I mean, anything. There are so many societies at this university that sort of any identity that you're worried about losing, I can almost guarantee that there will be a community of people with that shared identity who want to talk to you, and you can, in many ways, actually sort of get a firmer grip on that identity. I like, at least coming from the north, I've learned a lot more about different northern cities and sort of different sort of styles of living in the north. Through Northern Society and meeting friends, I've learned a lot about Sheffield in particular. Like, some of my best mates I've met here have been from Sheffield, and despite coming from the north, Sheffield's just somewhere I had never been or really thought about. Don't tell them that. So, like, there's things like that. I would say it's you can really get in touch actually with the roots of your identity through engaging with like the society system and sort of the people in your college and the wider university.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool to that from what you're saying, like people can learn more about their roots by coming to Cambridge, which you'd think wouldn't be the case, but from the Northern Society, that's really cool. It was. I remember because I had applied from a state school to Oxford and was raised in a council estate, and I'm not sure how many people would be able to tell from. And I also had a buzz cut when I so a lot had changed, and I think it sounds cliche, but I guess if you stay true to yourself, no matter where you are or what it appears like you're doing, you'd always, as long as you feel like you're just staying true to yourself, it doesn't really matter what people think. I remember someone said to me, we were in a pub, for context. We were having an argument about whether I was posh or not, and I kept saying that I wasn't. And he said, "You went to Oxford, that means you're automatically posh," which I thought was quite harsh.
Yeah. It's a part of going back to those preconceptions that people have. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah. And he was actually a Cambridge academic. It was quite interesting. I think he had the same opinion of Cambridge as well, and that like if you went to Cambridge or Oxford, that meant you were automatically posh. And I guess he kind of meant that in terms of the potential opportunities you might have after you leave university like Cambridge or Oxford. But do you think, like, if someone watching and they're proud to not be posh, but they're worried that if they were to come to Cambridge, and that would almost always be a marker on their life?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think I can say pretty safely, I don't think I'm posh, and I think most people I meet don't think I'm posh. And my family definitely isn't posh. And no, I really, as well, I think the sort of the preconceptions about Oxbridge with the great outreach I think both universities are doing, I think is starting to change.
Yeah.
So I think on a personal level, you don't become posh by coming to Oxbridge.
Yeah.
And on sort of a society level, I think sort of those preconceptions are changing. Yeah. So I don't think it's a permanent marker. Your friends will make jokes, but it's all in light spirits. Yeah. And I would say, as long as you just sort of accept the jokes, it comes with the package, but in a genuine way. No.
Yeah. It'll give some jokes back.
Yeah, exactly.
And the admission statistics for every year are online, and you can see what proportion of students that are admitted are from state schools or independent schools. And I think people are surprised when they hear that 70%, on average, 70% of the UK students are from state schools. And that wasn't always the case like 50 or 60 years ago, but it is the case today. and shows how the university is not elite, and 70% of the students are from state schools. Another thing that we had here wants to talk about was a lot of people watching might have a regional accent and might worry about fitting in coming to Cambridge. Was that a concern for you when you were applying?
Absolutely. I mean, I thought I was going to be singled out because of my accent, especially because I knew that, especially from like Newcastle's got quite a distinctive accent, and Newcastle's got really sort of low admission statistics for Oxbridge. So I thought I was going to sort of stick out like a sore thumb. And it's just not been the case. I mean, I've had people pick up on my accent, but it's never been in a negative way. People are always just interested to sort of learn where you come from. And it's nice because then that it sort of actually has opened more opportunities than I've had it sort of close. It's always just a nice conversation to have because they go, is that a Geordie accent, or what's that accent? Where are you from? And you get talking about where you're from, and you ask where they're from, and you get to learn about places that you might not have heard of. So yeah, it's in a weird way, it's a great way to open a door into a conversation. And I think some of those conversations have led to me, some of my best mates at the university now started out in Freshers Week just being like, that accent, where's it quite from? I'm trying to place it. So I'd actually say it's quite a positive thing, having an accent. It's a good door to open.
Nice, that sounds really cool. Yeah, as someone who finds small talk very difficult, having an easy go-to conversation starter is actually a bit of a gold mine for a lot of people. But I think the more important point is that it's people picking up on that. It's part of who you are, and they're curious to know who you are, and are asking, and then you get to ask them more about themselves and get to know each other, and that's a really cool aspect of university. Another thing that we've got, next thing that we've got on our list to talk about is there's for a lot of people there's a preconception that Cambridge is a very expensive university to attend to, and now more so, cost of living is really expensive everywhere, but even more so in Cambridge than the average city. Is Cambridge an expensive place for students studying?
Well, I won't lie and say that the city's cheap, because it's not. The city's very expensive. But what I would say is that for students, everything you need is provided in college, and everything in college is subsidised by the college. So whole food is very affordable. And accommodation as well, because of how the accommodation system works. At least if you it depends on the college, because each college has its own sort of prices. But at least at Trinity Hall, for me, I'm paying less because of how the accommodation system works with the weeks. I'm actually saving money than if I'd went to another university. Like what my accommodation would have worked out like in Manchester, I'm paying a lot less.
Can you expand on that for anyone who doesn't understand like how the accommodation terms are different?
So you pay. It's 8 weeks, 8-week terms. You put all of your stuff into storage at the end of those 8 weeks, and you don't pay rent for the holidays. Which sounds like a pain, and I'm not saying it's at the end of the term. I don't slightly dislike the system, but then I check sort of the bill, and I'm actually really thankful, because that system means that it works out. I'm paying, like, I have friends who are paying less than me per week at other universities, but the total bill mine ends up at, I think, half. It's like, at least compared like what my partner's paying, I'm paying half of what they're paying at Leeds, and their room's cheaper than mine. So that system, it really works out for saving money and helping on the finances.
Because you'd be paying 24 weeks per year out of 52 weeks, which is like less than half the year.
Yeah, it's the system really works. It's like putting your stuff in the storage, but well worth it, I would say. And I think everyone I've talked to completely agrees on that it's worth it for the money you save.
Yeah, and after first year, a lot of colleges, and every college is a bit different, so you should definitely check how their accommodation works. But there's off-site accommodation that's normally not too far from the city centre, and the rules about whether you can stay in the vacations tend to be different of off-site accommodation, where a lot of the off-site accommodation you can stay during the vacation. And also due to like circumstances, if you were to be estranged or your circumstances were to change suddenly, the college will support you in that. And I would want to say always we'll find you a solution, probably find you a room to stay in during the vacations. Just wanted to just add for anyone who's watching in those circumstances. And you're also talking about how the food is a lot cheaper. Like for anyone how much would like a lunch cost at Hall?
For lunch I would probably pay. No, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It depends what you get.
Yeah.
But I think I usually pay about £3 if I had to guess.
And is it like £3 you'd think of like less than a meal deal? What kind of food are you getting?
Oh, like, so what, for £3 you're getting like a main and a side. So I'm trying to cut potatoes out of my diet because, we're getting prepared for summer.
Yeah.
But you could get like, I don't know, you could get like a chicken leg and chips for like £3, which is a pretty heavy lunch, and that will set you up. And it's sort of the same. It's the same really at dinner. So it's really good value for money, I would say. And again, a big up Trinity Hall. The food's really nice.
Yeah, the food's really good.
So it's well worth it.
Nice. And how many like mains are there to choose from?
I would say 4 is pretty typical, and they always have 2 vegetarian options. At least Trinity Hall on a Monday, or all of the food is vegetarian.
Yeah, and best food in the city. Being able to go to college and have the food at college, that's a quarter of the price of what you'd get in town is a really good. Because I was talking before about how the city itself, like a lot of cities right now in the UK, is quite expensive. But as a student, a lot of your costs are going to be from the college or university, if I'm right.
Yeah. Everything's pretty much inside of the system. Like, if you wanted to and you lived frugally, you could not spend any money outside of the university system.
Yeah, because there's the accommodation, food, and then there's like the college cafe, college bar. It's all within the system, and then subsidised because they know that it's for students. And one should also say that the general idea of both Oxford and Cambridge is that finances shouldn't be a barrier for a student to study here. And if you feel like your financial situation will prohibit you to be able to study in Cambridge, then a solution will be found for you so that you can study here. And on that note, have you used any bursaries that are offered by the college or the university?
So I'm on the college bursary,
Nice.
Which was I didn't even know it existed. I applied and I got maximum student finance anyways. And I sort of thought, okay, I can make this work if I sort of, budget. And then I got here and I got a really lovely email from the college, just because they review the student applications, and they just gave me the bursary, no questions asked. And that's paid through 4th week of every term, which is a nice way of doing it, actually, because the 4th week, it's a nice it tops up your finances and keeps you going. rather than it sort of being in the first week and you have to try to stretch it across all 8 weeks. So yeah, it was, and the colleges, I would say as well, if you have any financial concerns, you can always go to the college, and they're very open and always willing to talk and try and work through stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. Was that a college? I genuinely don't know the answer to this question, but was that a college bursary, or was that the Cambridge bursary? Was that done by the university or the college?
I'm 90% certain it's the college bursary.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's the college bursar who I sort of
Nice.
It goes through. I could be wrong in that, but like I'm pretty certain it's the college bursary.
Okay, nice. Yeah, and then so just a bit. We can add. I'll put a caption. I'll put a link in the caption of all of the bursaries and hardship funds that the university offers. The most used one is probably the Cambridge bursary. It's all explained very well on the website, and these bursaries are accessible for those who are on a full maintenance loan, and there are other bursaries for specific circumstances. So when I was at university and I was estranged, I was eligible for the full bursary from the university and the full maintenance loan. So I was very fortunate that finances weren't an issue, and it was actually the reason why I wanted to apply to Oxford and Cambridge, because of the amount of because of how affordable it was, which people don't realise, but it's if you're worried about finances, it is the place to go to. So I'll put a link in the caption, and the college also do have bursaries, as you were saying, and they also have another hardship fund. So there are multiple avenues for support. From what I've seen, I think the biggest barrier to receiving a barrier that shouldn't be a barrier of receiving support is not communicating with the college. I think if the college knows that you need help, then they will support you, and they always would want you to know. They would always want to know your situation. So do let the college know, or do let the university know, and so that they can support you adequately. So was the financial support like ever on your mind when you're applying to Cambridge, or sounds like it was a bit of a surprise?
It was on my mind, but I thought it would be something I had to apply for.
Yeah.
Sort of once I got here, and I think, talking to friends, there are avenues you can go like that, but I didn't expect to just automatically be provided with the bursary. So it was definitely on my mind. As you said, the reason I applied to Cambridge, I would say the main reason is because it was the most affordable place for me to go.
Nice.
And there was the most support there. And I sort of knew I needed it.
Yeah.
I sort of, it was unexpected, but a nice surprise. And then the university and college are both very open, and if there's ever any concerns, talk to them. I would say they want their students to do well and to be happy and not really have any concerns like that in their life. So they're there. Talk to them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I learned how to ski during university, which was not on the cards before university. It was afterwards. And I think talking about the people who you can reach out to whilst you're a student, should also mention that in Cambridge, there's a team called the tutorial team. The members of staff in tutorial are there to facilitate like pastoral care for students. They would be the individuals who will process all of your paperwork once you're a student, and there'll be the people who you would reach out to and should reach out to if you wanted to communicate that you're in a hardship financial situation and you need support, and be able to provide you with that support and provide you with what options you have moving forward. So just another example of like a potential worst case scenario. I think I I didn't have somewhere to live for a summer, and I was a student, and this wasn't Trinity Hall, but a different college. They'd offered me to like somewhere to live as long as I worked in exchange, like in the Porter's Lodge, which was like a great opportunity, and great just for having somewhere to live, and the great that the college did that. The other alternative was that I could leave my stuff in international storage and come back for the start of the year. I actually did do that instead, and just travelled in Eastern Europe because it was a lot cheaper to live there. But that's yeah. But I could have. The college did offer me a place to stay, and I I really imagine that Trinity Hall would do the same as well. There's no way that the ethos is that finances and circumstances shouldn't be a barrier for you to thrive at your course, and the college really is like a family away from home in a sense. So lastly, for anyone who's watching, they're thinking about applying, they're hesitant, what advice would you have for anyone who's kind of on the fence?
I would reiterate my point that whatever you're worried about, you're probably wrong about in a very fortunate way. Those preconceptions are not true. As well, I think imposter syndrome is a very common thing in this university, and fears about mental health and etc. The university has great support for that, as you mentioned, like the tutors before. The tutors are great. My tutor's great. He's helped me a lot. And I would say take the plunge. It's a great place to be. There's great support. It's really fun. You're gonna learn things that you never thought you were gonna learn. And you've just gotta just take the plunge. Gotta give it a try.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much, Scout, for a really interesting podcast. Really enjoyed it, and really important one as well. And thanks for viewers for watching. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments, or if you want us to do any podcasts that we haven't done yet, put those in the comments as well. And we'll see you guys next time. Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. How was that?
That was really fun.
Nice. Yeah, I thought it was really